stop. Before any movement, before any plea to the future, before any attempt to fix the world outside, stop. There is a silent point within you, so familiar that you've forgotten it is the very root of your reality. And it is precisely there that most people destroy themselves without realizing it, not by what they live, but by what they assume themselves to be. The secret of I am is not a beautiful phrase. It is not a spiritual mantra. It is not a poetic metaphor. It is a key. A key that opens or locks doors, a key that elevates or imprisons, a key that creates or destroys, and most use it against themselves every day. The I am is the invisible seed of everything you experience in the visible world. Nothing comes from nothing. Everything is born from a state. Every failure, every victory, every loss, every healing, every opportunity and every fall, all of this is merely a reflection of the I am you silently carry when no one is looking. This is why so many lie believing they are fighting external enemies, when in reality, they are waging war only against their own internal conclusions. It is not the world that oppresses you. It is the mistaken I am that you feed without questioning. And here lies the mortal danger. You have grown accustomed to believing that what you feel is true, that what you see is definitive, that what you have suffered is your identity. Pain turns into I am weak. Rejection turns into I am unworthy. Fear turns into I am incapable. Repetition becomes a sentence, and without realizing it, you begin to live within a prison built by words you never analyzed but accepted as your own. The I am is the name you give to your inner state, and that name takes root. It shapes your eyes as you look at the world, shapes your mind as you interpret facts, and even shapes how others perceive you. The universe doesn't react to what you desire. It reacts to what you accept yourself to be. This is why many ask and do not receive, dream and do not achieve, seek and do not find. Because the mouth desires, but the I am contradicts, and no law of the universe bows to contradiction. You cannot clamor for abundance while perceiving yourself as someone who always loses. You cannot plead for love while assuming yourself to be solitary in thought. You cannot demand respect while continuing to see yourself as insignificant. The I am is the decree that defines the boundaries of your life. It defines what you attract, what you repel, what you allow, and what you believe you deserve. Therefore, I say, stop looking outward for the cause. Stop attributing to circumstances the power that has always been yours. The physical world is merely a delayed messenger of what you have internally proclaimed. It creates nothing. It only confirms. If you insist on observing your life as if it had authority over your destiny, you will continue living as a slave to your own creation. But when you understand, truly understand, that everything begins in the I am, something within you awakens. It is as if consciousness remembers its forgotten heritage. Suddenly you realize you were never a victim, only a dormant creator. So stop. Not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of awakening. Stop repeating states that diminish you. Stop affirming identities that no longer serve your path. Stop holding on to memories as if they were commandments. Before any external change, there is a silent, internal, definitive change, the change of the I am. When you change this, everything around you is compelled to reorganize itself. Nothing can resist. From this moment on, you are not hearing words. You are being called back to the center of creation. The I am awaits you. And what you unite with it will inevitably be your life. You don't receive what you desire, you receive what you are. This is the truth few dare to face, because it removes all excuses, all victims, all external culprits. When you understand this, you realize that nothing in your life is happening against you. It is happening here from you and our you. Desires are merely surface movements, momentary impulses, wills that change with the wind. But the inner state, that which you truly assume as your identity, is the soil where everything takes root and flourishes. Life does not respond to your emotional requests. It responds to your internal stance, to the silent conviction you carry even when you try to hide it from others. This is why many say they want prosperity, but live with their minds drenched in fear, anxiety, and a sense of loss. Others desire love but assume within themselves, even without words, that they are not enough, not seen, not chosen. Many ask for health while cultivating day after day the image of a fragile, vulnerable body incapable of recovery. Life cannot deliver what contradicts the state consciousness insists on inhabiting. Abundance cannot flourish where the inner ground is still barren soil. A fulfilling relationship cannot be born where "I am unworthy" continues to reign. Healing cannot emerge where "I am sick" is emotionally repeated, even in silence. Identity is more powerful than any desire. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, your life will confirm it. If you see yourself as someone who always loses, you will continue losing. If you believe you must try too hard to get crumbs, you will continue receiving crumbs. This is not punishment. It is correspondence. The universe does not judge, evaluate, or decide what you deserve. It simply reflects what you assume to be true about yourself. The law is impersonal, and because it is impersonal, it is perfect. It simply returns what you send out in the form of identity. Therefore, the question that transforms is not, "What do I want?" but "Who am I being?" Because everything you experience is merely the echo of that answer. When you change your "I am," you change your point of attraction, change the field, change the vibration, change your destiny. You can desire whatever you want, but you will only manifest what you have become, what you embody as a state, what you accept without resistance. And this change doesn't require time, it requires decision, an internal, silent, non-negotiable decision. From the moment you choose to inhabit the state of the person who already possesses what they desire, you stop asking and begin to assume, and everything around you, sooner or later, will be compelled to obey. The world is not the cause, it is the consequence. This is the key that separates those who live awakened from those who live reacting. Most look at circumstances as if they were independent forces, as if they had the power to dictate who a person is, what they can do, what they deserve. But everything you see around you is merely the visible trace of the state you previously assumed. The physical world creates nothing, it merely announces. It is a delayed messenger, an old photograph of what you have already carried within yourself. If today your life seems limited, it is not because someone blocked you. It is not because destiny punished you. It is not because bad luck chose you. It is merely the echo of an identity you accepted in the past, and which is now being displayed on the screen of reality. When you face the world in this way, something powerful happens. You stop being afraid of it. You stop feeling like its victim. You stop waiting for circumstances to change so that only then you can feel different. This order never works, because the world has no authority to initiate anything. It only responds. Most people live as if they were trying to convince the mirror to smile first. They react to what they see, get emotional about what appears, and then desperately try to change the reflection without changing their face. No matter how much effort you put into the mirror, the reflection will never change before the real face does, and that is exactly what happens when you try to control the external world without adjusting your internal state. You search for signs, ask for confirmations, observe if anything has changed, and seeing nothing, return to the old state. But it is precisely this return that reinforces the old reality. Life reacts to what you barakai, not to what you observe. If you look at your current situation and believe in it as if it were the final truth, you hand over to the shadow the power to command the light. Circumstances become your master, when, in fact, they have always been your messengers. When you understand that the world is a consequence, you free yourself, because you realize that nothing external has permission to define you. A failure does not make you a failure. A rejection does not make you unworthy. A difficult phase does not determine your destiny. These are merely effects, signs, echoes, shadows of an inner state that you can change at any moment. You don't need to wait for anything to improve to change within. It is the internal change that provokes external change, and not the other way around. The reflection has no will of its own. It merely imitates what you sustain within. And when you choose a new state, with real conviction, the world will inevitably follow. Everything you repeat becomes your dwelling. Most believe that thought is fleeting, a current that comes and goes without leaving marks. But every accepted thought, every emotionally nourished image, every phrase you repeat in silence, builds a brick in the construction of the state you inhabit. You do not dwell in a house made of walls. You dwell in the state you occupy. And it is this state, not desire, not hope, not a request, that shapes the experiences that repeat in your life. The mind doesn't differentiate between imagined and real. It merely responds to what is repeated with sufficient intensity. This is why people who constantly worry always find new reasons to worry. It's not bad luck, it's a dwelling. They live within the state of worry, and everything around them reorganizes to confirm this internal residence. Similarly, someone who constantly imagines failures, downfalls, rejections, or impossibilities begins to live in a state where every movement in the world seems to validate that scenario. Life doesn't do this out of malice. It merely faithfully returns what you insist on presenting to it as emotional identity. Repetition is choice, and choice is creation. Each time you revisit a painful memory, you reinforce the state of one who suffered. Each time you imagine the worst outcome, you strengthen the state of one who fears. Each time you feed a negative conclusion about yourself, you deepen the roots of the state you wish to abandon. And when this state becomes a habit, it becomes home. An emotional home you carry everywhere, even when you try to hide it. This is why you can change cities, jobs, relationships, and still experience the same situations. Because what needs to be changed is not the scenarios, but the inner house you built with your own thoughts. But here is the most important point. If you created this dwelling through repetition, you can undo it in the same way. By repeating new images, new conclusions, new sensations, you build a new state. And this new state, when cultivated with constancy, begins to produce new circumstances. You are not trapped by what you thought yesterday. You are merely experiencing the echo of what you allowed to repeat. True freedom begins when you understand that you are not obligated to continue living within an emotional house that no longer serves you. You can leave it. You can lock the door to the past. You can build another, more worthy, more expansive, more aligned with what you wish to live. And all of this begins with what you decide to repeat today. Assuming the desired state requires discipline, and a silent, internal, relentless discipline. It's not about rehearsing positive phrases or trying to think beautiful thoughts. It's about internally occupying the identity of what you choose to be and not allowing anything, absolutely anything, to drag you back to the old state. When you assume a new I am, the old one tries to pull you back like a stubborn habit, like an automatic reflex. Old circumstances still echo. People still react to your past version, and even your body seems to repeat impulses of who you were. It is at this moment that most people give up, because they think that internal change should be immediately accompanied by external change. But that is not how this law operates. The interior gives the command. The exterior obeys with a delay. Assuming a new state is like holding a sacred territory within yourself. You do not waver, do not negotiate, do not doubt. You protect this identity as one who guards something too valuable to be touched by the world. No matter what happens on the outside, you remain firm. The old state tries to convince you through memories, sensations, old feelings, but you respond with an unmoving certainty. The mind tries to say this is not you, but the new state says this always was you. You just forgot. And it is in this inner firmness that change truly begins to happen. The discipline here is not physical effort. It is emotional constancy. It is the ability to return again and again to the assumed state, even if the world does not yet reflect any of it. It is the capacity to deny the old any right of return. When doubt appears, you do not cultivate it. When fear arises, you do not feed it. When memory tries to pull you back to what was, you respond, I don't live there anymore. This is the true spiritual work, to remain, to sustain, to guard. Not to yield to the temporary reflection that still shows the old version. And as you persist internally, something on the outside begins to yield. Situations that seemed fixed begin to lose their power. People who represented your old state move away or change their behavior. The path reorganizes itself. But all of this only happens because you refuse to abandon the assumed state before it blossomed. Changing within doesn't require effort, but it does require decision. And defending that decision requires courage. Courage not to bow to appearances, courage not to idolize what you see, courage to remain faithful to what you chose to be. Whoever sustains the state wins, always, because reality has no choice when identity remains firm. Living as if it were already so is the final key, the one that transforms the assumed state into inevitable reality. It's not playing make-believe, it's not fantasizing, it's not waiting for a sign, it is to internally inhabit the identity that corresponds to what you desire until it becomes so natural that the old you simply disappears. When you live as if it were already so, you stop asking and start commanding. Not aloud, not to the world, but in the silent vibration of consciousness, the only place where creation truly happens. This is where many get confused. They think that living as if it were already so means pretending, acting as if they are lying to themselves. But pretense belongs to the ego. Assumption belongs to the spirit. To pretend is to try to convince the exterior. To assume is to internally occupy a state until it becomes your truth. And everything within responds to that truth with mathematical precision. When you choose to be prosperous internally, your gestures change, your gaze changes, your rhythm changes. When you choose to be loved, your posture changes, your energy changes, your presence changes. When you choose to be healthy, your body begins to obey the new image you sustain. Living as if it were already so means making imagination your permanent residence, not a place you visit now and then. It is to treat the desired state as existing, real, present, not something distant that might one day happen. You walk as one who already has. You breathe as one who already is. You feel as one who has already achieved. And it doesn't matter what the external world shows, because you already know it is merely a delayed shadow of what is fixed within you. The shadow cannot command the light. This, as if it were already so, is not acting. It is alignment. It is transforming your consciousness into a point of origin, not a point of waiting. It is stopping looking outward for signs and starting to feel certainty within. It is abandoning anxiety for results and assuming the confidence of one who has already arrived. When you live in this way, something extraordinary happens. The world loses its power to influence you and begins to be influenced by you. External structures begin to reorganize around the identity you firmly maintain. People respond differently. Opportunities arise as if by coincidence, doors open effortlessly. None of this is magic. It is law. When you decide to live as if it were already so, reality has no choice. It bends to your inner state because that is the only place where it is born. And sooner or later, everything you sustain within will become visible outside. Your entire life is just this, the inevitable manifestation of what you had the courage to assume as truth. Therefore, maintain the state, feel it as real. Live as if it were already so, and the world will merely confirm what you already are. Stop begging for external changes. Stop looking at life as someone waiting for permission, signs, or luck. None of that has power over you. The reality you live today, all of it, is merely the delayed consequence of the state you carried yesterday. And this means that from this moment on, you can turn everything upside down simply by changing what you chuarban within. The world is not a force that pushes you, it is an echo that obeys you. It does not command you, it responds to you. Every door that opens or closes, every encounter, every delay, every advance, all of this is merely the reflection of your I am. Therefore, from now on, expect nothing more from the outside. Don't wait for proof, validation, confirmation, applause, or guarantee. Stop looking at circumstances as if they were sovereign. Stop asking the world for what can only be born in imagination. The entire universe bows to the state you choose to inhabit, not to what you say you want. This is the exhortation few have the courage to accept, because it places all the power in your hands. There is no longer, I hope something changes. There is only, I change the state, and the world follows. And it follows, always. Assume what you desire, as if it were already so you. Feel it as already yours. Carry the identity silently, without haste and without doubt. Walk with the posture of one who knows, not one who asks. Breathe as one who already possesses, not one who begs. Think as someone who has already arrived, not someone who seeks. Change doesn't happen when you convince the world, but when you convince yourself. It is the internal, firm, non-negotiable conviction that reorganizes everything around you. And when the old state tries to call you back, and it will try, ignore it as you would a shadow, because that is what it is, a shadow. And shadows have no authority. They merely reflect what you have already ceased to be. Remain in the new state as one who guards a treasure. Feel it as real until it becomes inevitable. The world has no choice when identity is decided. From this moment, carry only one certainty. Everything already is, and everything is within. You don't need to wait, beg, observe, or fear. You just need to assume. Everything you desire already exists as a living possibility within you, merely awaiting your declaration with silent authority. I am, and complete it with what you choose to be. The rest will inevitably follow. Now that you have journeyed through this entire discourse, the time has come to bring everything to a final point that doesn't end, it awakens. All true transformation begins when you decide to stop living as someone who reacts and start living as someone who creates. You have already seen how the I am shapes your reality, how every accepted thought becomes a seed, every state a vibration, and every vibration a concrete experience. Now at this instant, you face the most important choice: to continue carrying old identities that never led you where you desire, or to assume, with silent authority, the state of one who knows that everything already is. Nothing you desire is distant. Nothing is blocked. Nothing is out of your reach. The only veil between you and your new life is the identity to which you still insist on returning. Free yourself from it. Stop negotiating with doubt, begging for signs, seeking permission from the external world. It has nothing to give you. It merely returns what you sustain within. Reality doesn't lead you, it follows you. And when you understand this, truly understand it, there is no more room to live small. From now on, make an irreversible decision. Silently declare what you choose to be and remain in it as one who defends a sacred territory. Life cannot resist an identity assumed with conviction. It reorganizes itself, it bends, it obeys. Everything you have seen in this discourse points to a single internal mandate: be now. What you once sought to be someday. Wear the consciousness of the accomplished. Walk, breathe, act, and imagine as one who has already arrived. And then just observe, because everything, absolutely everything, will begin to move in your favor. And if you wish to deepen this process even further and accelerate your transformation, I have left a resource in the pinned comment that perfectly complements what you have learned here. It is not just more material, it is a tool created to expand your clarity, intensify your inner state, and help you manifest the life you know you deserve. Click the link in the pinned comment and continue your journey with authority and consciousness. The change has already begun within you. Now let the world simply follow suit. Before asking the universe for anything, you need to understand the mystery that sustains all existence. Nothing is granted out of pity, luck, or chance. Everything is created by law, the law of assumption. The universe is not outside of you, observing your desires and deciding whether to fulfill them. It is the exact mirror of what you are, not what you say you are. And this is why many ask and do not receive, because they ask like those who doubt, dream like those who fear, and imagine like those who still feel small before their own creation. The universe is too perfect to be moved by empty words. It does not respond to the plea of the man who begs, but to the conviction of the man who knows. As long as you speak of faith but feel lack, as long as you pray in expectation, as long as you imagine and still observe what is not yet, the universe continues to obey the vibration of waiting, not the image of the desire. Every thought of yours is a silent command. Every emotion is a decree. And every inner state you maintain is a seed cast into eternity. Do you want to learn how to ask the universe? Then understand. You're not asking an external being. You are giving instructions to the creative power that lives within you. The I am that dwells in silence is the same one that created the worlds, and it needs no words to act. It needs only certainty. When you ask, do not say I want, say I am. Do not imagine what you desire as a distant future. See it as something finished, done, present. This is what asking and receiving means. It is not a mystical promise. It is a precise operation of consciousness. The mistake of most is to look at the world and try to change it from the outside. But the world is merely a frozen photograph of what you have already believed yourself to be. Every relationship, every obstacle, every blessing is a reflection of an inner state. When you understand this, You stop fighting against shadows and begin to kindle the light within yourself. And when the light changes, the reflection changes. Thus, asking the universe is, in reality, choosing the state you wish to maintain and remaining in it until reality bends. So before any technique, take a deep breath and understand. Power is not in something that will come. It is here now, silently pulsing at the core of your being. The universe is like a mirror that knows only one answer: yes. If you say, "I am blessed," it will say yes. If you say, "I am unhappy," it will also say yes. It does not judge, it merely reflects. Therefore, the true request is not made with the mouth, but with feeling. It is the state you assume that speaks for you. And when your inner self says it is already, the entire universe conspires to prove it true. The first thing one must learn before asking is to silence the world. There is no true creation where there is noise. Noise is the voice of the conditioned mind, the chorus of appearances, the echo of old beliefs trying to convince you that external reality has power over you. But nothing external has any power. Everything is effect. Silence, on the other hand, is the home of the cause. When you close your eyes and let the world die, something within you awakens. It is in this invisible space that the creative command is issued. It is not an empty silence, it is a full silence. The same silence that existed before the first word, "Let there be light." It is there that the I Am speaks, and when it speaks, everything aligns. As long as you seek signs, proofs, external confirmations, you remain trapped in the world of shadows. It's like trying to shape the reflection in a mirror without touching the face that produces it. The one who wants to change the reflection needs to turn inward and adjust their face and their inner state. Silence is this adjustment. It cuts the cord that ties you to appearances. This is why few manage to remain in it. The ego fears disappearing because silence unmasks it. However, it is in this apparent disappearance that true power emerges. When you silence, you cease to be the person limited by circumstances and become their creator. Close your eyes and feel the stillness. Do not fight against thoughts, just watch them die. Every thought that passes is a leaf carried by the wind, and soon the lake of the mind becomes calm. At this moment, something sublime happens. You begin to perceive the invisible field that sustains everything. It is a living, intelligent, obedient consciousness, and it only understands one language: feeling. This is why silence is so powerful, because it is in it that true feeling emerges, without the distortions of the mind. It is in it that you feel the desired reality as if it were now, and this pure feeling is the command the universe obeys. The ordinary person believes they need to strive, repeat phrases, beg the heavens, but the Creator merely silences and feels. They know that effort is the confession of doubt. When you feel the need to force, it is because you still believe something is outside of you. In silence, this illusion disappears. You understand that there is no separation between what is desired and the one who desires. Desire is merely life calling you to expand your consciousness. So, by silencing the world, you are not escaping reality. You are returning to its source. In this state, problems lose their weight, lacks lose their meaning, and time ceases to exist. What was distant becomes present. What was impossible becomes simple. Silence reveals that the universe has always responded, but you did not hear it because of the inner noise. Now, without noise, you realize that creation does not demand effort, only recognition. And recognition is silent. So, before trying to ask, learn to be silent. Not with the mouth, but with the soul. Let the past die, let fear dissolve, let desire become a knowing. The moment your inner self rests in stillness and certainty, the entire universe bows before you, because in that instant, you are not asking, you are creating. Silence is the altar of power, and he who knows how to dwell in it never asks again. He merely declares, and the world obeys. Now that the world has been silenced, the time comes to create the new image. And this is where many fail, because they confuse imagination with fantasy. Fantasy is distant desire, imagination is present creation. When you imagine correctly, you are not dreaming of something you want to have, but living what is already yours in consciousness. The secret is simple, but it demands purity. You must see and feel the result as if it is already happening now. The universe does not respond to "one day it will be," but to "it already is." Close your eyes and enter the scene of your fulfilled desire, not as an observer, but as the main character. Feel the touch of what you have achieved, the sound of the voice congratulating you, the air moving around you. If you desire prosperity, feel the comfort and security of already possessing it. If you desire love, feel the warmth of the presence that is already yours. Do not limit yourself to seeing images, live them. Imagination is the workshop where God works, and you are the worker. Emotion is the hammer that seals each creation. Do not think that imagining is merely a mental exercise. It is a spiritual action. Everything that exists in the physical world today was once an image held in someone's mind. Every bridge, every city, every invention began as an invisible blueprint in the consciousness of someone who dared to believe. When you imagine with emotion, the invisible begins to solidify. The substance of the universe, that energy which permeates everything, begins to mold itself according to the form you hold within you. But here is a subtle and decisive point. You cannot imagine trying to make it happen. Effort destroys the creative act. Creative imagination is calm, natural, secure, like someone reliving a memory. When you try to force it, you are silently saying, "It is not real yet," and the universe, obedient, agrees. Therefore, imagine as if recalling. Remember what is already yours. See yourself in the outcome naturally. The feeling of normalcy is the key. The miracle manifests when the extraordinary becomes common in your mind. While imagining, do not look for signs or ask when it will come. That is the language of doubt. Just feel the pleasure of already possessing it. Feeling is the silent command that the universe understands. Emotional intensity needs no shouts. It is gentle, yet absolute. It is like the certainty of dawn. You do not need to see it to know it will come. This silent confidence is the faith that creates. Remain for a few moments in this feeling of fulfillment, as if everything has already happened. And as you open your eyes, bring this feeling with you. Walk, speak, act like someone who is already living it. Imagination does not end when you awaken. It continues to shape the world with every action you take. The universe has no choice but to confirm the state you maintain. Thus, do not ask the universe for what you desire. Give it the image of the completed result and sustain it with emotion. When emotion becomes a conviction, the invisible bends, and what was once merely a vision becomes life. Because imagination is not the path to the future, it is the future in seed form. And he who feels now what he wishes to live later awakens the power to create the impossible. Now that the image has been created and the feeling imprinted on the invisible, the time comes to protect the seed. And this means abandoning doubt. This is the most difficult stage because it is here that the mind tries to regain control. After feeling reality is completed, the ordinary person opens their eyes and looks back at the world, searching for proof that something has changed. But when they do this, they lose their power. Because looking at the world is returning to serve the old creation. The visible is merely the echo of the invisible, and whoever observes the echo forgets the voice. The true creator understands that they do not need to see to know. They know because they felt. They do not despair when circumstances seem to contradict their desire. They do not beg for signs, do not doubt the invisible, and do not react to appearances. They understand that time is merely the distance between the seed and the harvest, and they do not try to pull up the plant to check if it is growing. They remain in silent faith, sustaining the state as if it were already a fact because on the inner plane it already is. Doubt is the mind's attempt to prove what the spirit has already decreed. It is the old self trying to survive, shouting, "What if it doesn't work?" But the Creator replies, "It already has." When you doubt, you create again, but you create absence. The universe is neutral. It does not decide what is real, it merely replicates what you sustain. And sustaining doubt is asking for two things at once, the desire and the lack of it. It's like lighting and blowing out a candle without realizing you are the one blowing. Therefore, when doubt comes, and it will come. Do not fight it. Simply return to the silence. Remember the feeling of certainty you created and return to it. Reaffirm the state, not with words, but with presence. Say within yourself, I am this, and remain. The power is in remaining. The world may shout otherwise, but creation does not happen in noise. It happens in constancy. The universe always bows to the mind that does not change its position. It is at this point that many give up, and this is why few see results. They plant the seed of certainty and then pluck it out with doubt. They create at night and destroy by day. But he who has learned to remain is invincible. They know that time is not an enemy, but an ally. They know that the invisible needs maturation to take form, and so they rest. They do not wait with anxiety, they wait with confidence. Nothing you see now matters. The current scenario is merely a portrait of what you believed yesterday. Today, you are creating tomorrow. If you remain faithful to your new belief, the world will have no choice but to change. The creator who doubts still sees themselves as a servant of fate. The one who remains knows they are fate. Therefore, abandon doubt with firmness. It is the last veil between you and the miracle. When the heart quiets in certainty, the invisible hastens to serve. Because the universe is a servant of conviction, and nothing can resist a mind that does not waver. After doubt is overcome, and the inner state becomes firm, the time comes to live as if it already is. It is here that imagination turns into flesh, that the invisible begins to take on form. Many are mistaken believing that visualizing is enough, but true creation demands coherence. You must think, feel, act, and react as one who already is what they asked for. It is what Neville called donning the desired state. The universe responds not to what you say you want, but to what you demonstrate you are. The one who desires wealth, but speaks of scarcity, is still poor in consciousness. The one who seeks love but fears rejection is still an orphan of themselves. The one who dreams of health but keeps repeating the name of the illness still adores pain more than healing. The creator, by contrast, chooses to inhabit the new state. They do not pretend to me, they embody. They do not force them, they allow themselves to be. And this naturalness is the sign that the new identity has already begun to be born. Living as if it already is not a lie. It is spiritual truth sustaining itself before the world recognizes it. It is the same principle that moves the scriptures when they say, "Believe that you have already received, and you will receive." There is no miracle in this. There is only a perfect order of consciousness. When you assume the vibration of the completed result, all people, circumstances, and events begin to align to confirm this new frequency. The external world is like a mirror that only reflects what you are internally. But beware, acting as if it already is does not mean forcing theatrical behaviors. It is not going out and buying what you do not yet have, nor deceiving yourself with empty gestures. It is a silent, intimate state that precedes all actions. You can continue in the same job, in the same house, living with the same people, and still be someone completely new. Because true change is not in things, it is in consciousness. And when it changes, things inevitably change too. Walk therefore with the demeanor of one who has already won. Speak with the serenity of one who has already achieved. Act with the confidence of one who has already received, not to convince the world, but because this is now your inner truth. When the world perceives this vibrational coherence, it will bend before it. The universe is too mathematical to resist certainty. It rearranges everything to maintain harmony with the state you sustain. This stage is the test of faith. It is here that you will be tempted to return to your old self when nothing seems to be happening. But the Creator knows that changes begin in the invisible, and the invisible always precedes the visible. Therefore, they remain calm. They continue living as if it already is, even without proof, because the proof is the sustained state itself. Faith is not waiting for the result. It is being the result before it exists. So choose today to live as if your desire is already part of your life. Let every gesture, every look, and every thought reveal the new being born within you. And the world, as a faithful reflection, will have no choice but to recognize this new creation. Because the universe is a slave to identity, and reality always bows before one who already is. And now, the fifth and final step. Give thanks before seeing. This is the seal of creation, the point where faith transforms into absolute certainty. Gratitude is the language of the gods. It is the silent sound that tells the universe, it is already done. When you give heartfelt thanks, you are not trying to receive. You are recognizing that you have already received. And it is in this recognition that the invisible solidifies and the miracle finds its way to manifest. Many believe that gratitude is a moral gesture, an expression of good spiritual manners. It is not. Gratitude is creative power in action. When you give thanks, your vibration rises to the same level as what you already possess. You become one with what you desire, and like attracts like. To give thanks is to declare, my desire and I are one. It is the fusion of the Creator with the creation. And when this fusion happens, the universe simply obeys. Try giving thanks now, not for what will come, but for what already is. Close your eyes and say silently, thank you, because it has already happened. Feel the relief of one who has already received, the rest of one who no longer needs to struggle. This feeling is the true sign that the request has been accepted, not because the universe decided to grant it, but because you stopped doubting. Gratitude dissolves the distance between the invisible and the visible. It transforms not yet into already is. Realize that gratitude does not depend on favorable circumstances. You do not need things to change to give thanks. You need to give thanks for things to change. It is the opposite of what the world teaches. The ordinary person only gives thanks when they see the result, and that is why they live in waiting. The Creator gives thanks before, and that is why they see. Because they understood that time is merely an illusion, and that the future is already planted in the present of their consciousness. When you awaken in the morning and feel gratitude without reason, you are affirming to life that everything you desire is already real on the invisible plane. And the universe, as a faithful servant, hastens to make visible what you sustain with joy and certainty. Gratitude is the bridge that unites the invisible to the material world. It does not ask, does not force, does not demand. It simply recognizes. He who gives thanks before seeing has already transcended doubt. They live in the state of completeness. They do not beg for miracles, because they understand that the act of giving thanks itself is the miracle. Every breath becomes a prayer, every moment a silent testimony that the power is within them, not external. So, give thanks now, even if the world still shows the opposite. Give thanks because you know that everything is already moving in your favor, even if you do not yet see it. Give thanks as one who signs a contract with the invisible, and then rest, because the Creator who gives thanks does not wait. They celebrate. They do not observe time. They reign over it. Gratitude is the Creator's Amen. It is the final touch before the invisible blossoms into form. When you say thank you with conviction, the universe whispers back, so it is. And in that instant, everything that was a promise becomes fact. Because gratitude is the silent confirmation that creation has been completed. Now you understand. The universe was never deaf to your requests. It was you who spoke the wrong language. You asked with words but vibrated in lack. You begged for signs but doubted the power you already possessed. The universe is too perfect to respond to confusion. It only obeys clarity, certainty, and the feeling of completion. Everything you sought externally was always within, waiting for you to remember who you are. Stop, therefore, asking like a spiritual beggar. You are not a servant pleading for blessings. You are the heir of creative power. And heirs do not ask, they assume. When you assume a state with silent and unwavering faith, the entire universe reorganizes to confirm your new identity. There is no opposing force capable of resisting an awakened consciousness. Everything that exists out there is merely the reflection of what you sustain in here. You have learned the method. Silence the world to hear the voice of creation. Imagine with emotion, not as one who desires, but as one who recalls. Abandon all doubt, because to doubt is to create the opposite. Live as if it already is, because that is what you truly are. And give thanks before seeing, for gratitude is the seal that closes the creative cycle. When these 5 stages become your natural way of existing, the impossible becomes inevitable. The awakened person does not react to the world, they command it. They do not wait for time, they shape it. They do not seek signs, they create them. And all this not by force but by consciousness. When you become master of your inner state, you will see that reality bows before you like an obedient mirror. Doors open, paths align, and the invisible begins to work in your favor, in ways that reason could never foresee. From now on, speak little and declare much. Not with words, but with presence. Walk with the certainty of one who already possesses. Love with the confidence of one who is already loved. Live with the tranquility of one who has already won, because the universe does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. And when your inner self says in silence, "It already is," the entire universe will respond, "So be it." In that instant, you will no longer be asking for anything. You will be creating. And creation, my child, is the true language of God that dwells within you. An individual walks through life believing themselves awake, but their actions reveal the opposite. They react to the world like a sleepwalker who believes they are in command, but all they do is respond to shadows projected by their own consciousness. They live prisoner of appearances, convinced that circumstances shape them, that luck favors or abandons them, that others have power over their destiny. This is humanity's great deception, the illusion of separation. The truth, however, is otherwise. Nothing happens externally that has not first been conceived internally. The visible is merely the echo of the invisible. What you call life is the stage where your imagination enacts your most intimate beliefs. When I speak of awakening consciousness, I am not referring to a moment of mystical illumination, but to a gradual process of remembrance. You are not learning something new, you are recalling what you have always been. Deep within your being, there is a voice that whispers, "I am." This is the divine spark, the starting point and the end point of all creation. But an individual, dominated by their senses, has forgotten this power. They look in the mirror and believe the reflection is who they are. They observe the world and think it exists by itself. They ignore that every face, every fact, every event is the mirror of their assumption sustained with emotion and belief. Everything you call a problem is just a temporary form of your own imagination. The fear you feel is a reflection of your disbelief in yourself. The scarcity that surrounds you is an accurate portrait of your inner state. But the awakened person doesn't fight with forms. They recognize them as symbols, signs that reveal where their consciousness resides. They don't try to change the scenery. They change the mind that projects it, because they know that the world is merely the mirror that reveals the invisible face of their being. Awakening is painful only for the ego, that mask which fears losing control. But what is truly lost is not control, but the illusion. When one awakens, they understand that there is no outside separate from an inside. What they see as distant, they themselves generated. What they call destiny, they themselves wrote. Then the first light emerges, the awareness that nothing external can be changed without the internal changing first. It is at this moment that the journey begins, not towards a new world, but towards the correct perception of the world that has always been there. The awakening of consciousness is the return to the Father's house, to the original state of being, where everything is possible and nothing is out of reach. And when this remembrance is ignited, reality, obedient, begins to bend before the one who has finally recalled, "I and the Father are one." In the first phase of awakening, an individual lives completely identified with the body and the world of forms. They believe themselves to be merely a limited individual, subject to the laws of chance, circumstances, and matter. Everything that happens outside of them seems to have an independent cause: an unfair boss, a corrupt government, an unstable economy, a difficult childhood. They live believing that power lies externally, and therefore try in vain to control everything around them. When something goes wrong, they rebel, seek blame, or surrender to resignation. When something goes right, they swell with pride, convinced that it was luck or effort that favored them. This state is the deep sleep of consciousness, the complete forgetting of one's own divine origin. The person in this phase is a mirror that only reflects what others project. They react, they do not create. Their mind is like an open field where any seed, good or bad, finds fertile ground. The opinions of others shape their beliefs, and their beliefs shape their destiny. They do not realize they are the invisible author of every experience. They believe suffering comes from outside, without understanding that it is merely the harvest of a thought silently sustained. Everything they fear, they invite. Everything they resist, they reinforce. Everything they ignore repeats itself. This stage is necessary, for it is in it that the human being begins to feel the weight of separation. The existential void, the feeling that life is merely a sequence of repeating days, is the first sign that something within wants to awaken. They feel there is more, but they don't yet know what it is. They observe the success of others with envy or admiration, without realizing that they are merely witnessing different states of consciousness in action. They pray to a distant God, implore for miracles, without knowing that the very act of asking reinforces the idea that they do not have. And what one believes they do not have, they can never receive. In this phase, an individual lives in constant conflict, for their mind is divided between desire and doubt. They want to change the world, but they do not change themselves. They want prosperity, but they hold thoughts of lack. They want love, but they vibrate with rejection. They want peace, but they feed inner war. The world obedient merely reflects what they are. No external master can awaken them as long as they insist on blaming the scenery. But slowly, something begins to change. They grow tired of fighting against appearances. They grow tired of begging for attention, for luck, for answers. This weariness is the beginning of faith, because only when an individual is exhausted by the visible world do they begin to look within. And there, in the silent depths of their own imagination, they will find the seed of what they always sought outside: the power to create, the power to be, the power to remember that everything begins and ends in their own consciousness. In the second phase, something begins to stir within an individual, a subtle discomfort, a restlessness that no external achievement can silence. They feel there is something wrong with living solely by reacting to events. Even when they achieve what they so desired, the pleasure is short-lived, and emptiness soon follows. It is as if the world, once colorful and solid, begins to dissolve in their hands. It is the silent call of consciousness, inviting them to look within. This discomfort is the first indication that the spirit has begun to awaken. They try to understand what is happening. They seek new beliefs, new religions, new methods. They read books, follow gurus, change cities, change their appearance, but they still look for the answer outside themselves. It is the beginning of a spiritual search, but still confused because it originates from the same fundamental error: the belief that there is something to be achieved. They want to find the truth, but they do not realize it already dwells within them. They want to reach the light, but they are still chasing shadows. Thus, they begin to alternate between moments of faith and moments of doubt, between hope and fear, between belief in the invisible and the need for immediate proof. In this phase, life begins to become a clearer mirror. Circumstances seem to repeat themselves, as if wanting to teach something. Different people bring the same conflicts. Old situations return with a new face, but the same essence. It is the law operating with precision, revealing to the individual the states of consciousness they insist on sustaining. They still don't understand, but they begin to suspect that an invisible order guides everything, a perfect correspondence between what they feel and what they see. And then one day something happens. They realize that when they change their internal attitude, the world responds. Perhaps a problem that seemed impossible resolves itself when they decide to trust. Perhaps a person changes their behavior without them saying a word. This moment is small, but it is the beginning of real faith. For the first time, they glimpse that power is not in circumstances, but in the internal state. This perception disturbs them and at the same time frees them. Because if it's true that they create everything, then there's no one left to blame. But also, there is nothing left to fear. The individual who reaches this phase feels caught between two worlds. Part of them still wants to fight and control, but another part begins to surrender to the wisdom of the invisible. They realize that external things are not causes, but consequences. They understand that reality is malleable, obedient, alive, and that it responds to their inner tone. It is the beginning of true spiritual responsibility. Now they can no longer say life is unfair, for they begin to see that life merely reveals perfectly the state they have chosen to inhabit. This is the beginning of remembering who they truly are. In the third phase, the individual finally discovers the law. They realize that everything they feel and imagine with conviction takes form in the visible world. This revelation dazzles them. They begin to test, to experiment, and they perceive that in fact what they hold in consciousness manifests with mathematical precision. It is as if they have found the lost key to the universe. For the first time, they understand that they are not a victim of circumstances, but their author. This is the moment when one realizes there is a direct correspondence between the invisible and the visible, between the inner state and the outer result. At first, they use this power innocently and even selfishly. They seek to solve immediate problems, conquer what they desire, impress others. They try to manipulate the law without yet understanding that there is nothing to manipulate, only something to understand. They imagine that power serves to obtain things when in reality, power is to be what one desires. The awakened individual at this stage experiences a mix of fascination and fear. Fascination for realizing that everything is possible, and fear because they begin to understand that they are also responsible for everything. What they previously attributed to destiny, they now recognize as their own creation. But even in this initial understanding, the old habit of looking outward still dominates them. They create consciously for some time, but soon return to doubt. When the manifestation doesn't happen quickly, they despair and think the law has failed. They don't realize that it was they who departed from the desired state. The individual in this phase still believes that doing is more important than being. They still think they need to force the invisible to act, without understanding that the invisible is always responding to what they are. Life, like a patient teacher, continues to show them the exact reflection of their inner vibration. Everything they sustain in feeling, even unconsciously, reveals itself before them. And then they begin to realize that the true use of the law is not in changing the world, but in changing the state of consciousness from which the world is born. They discover that it is not thought that creates but sustained feeling. They learn that to imagine is to live, and that the external world is merely the echo of the internal world. When this perception takes hold, the individual begins to use power with greater wisdom. They understand that there is no need to fight against anything, only to assume the desired state, and remain in it until the invisible becomes visible. They begin to understand that there are no miracles, only laws being applied with consciousness. And at this point, they take the first step towards mastery. The understanding that everything they see, experience, and touch is merely the materialization of what they dared to feel as true within themselves. In the fourth phase, the individual awakens to the truth that they are not the character living the experiences, but the consciousness that creates them. They begin to see the world with new eyes, no longer as something to be fought against, but as an exact mirror of their inner being. People, circumstances, places, everything comes to be recognized as reflections of states of consciousness. They understand that the other is not an enemy nor a coincidence, but an aspect of themselves in expression. At this moment, the individual stops judging. They no longer feel the need to defend their position or justify their actions, because they understand that the exterior is neutral and only takes form according to the meaning they themselves attribute to it. This is the phase of supreme responsibility. The individual realizes that if everything is a projection of their mind, there is nothing outside their control, but also no one left to blame. They become the conscious creator. They do not react to evil, because they know that reacting is confirming the state that generated it. They do not fear scarcity, because they recognize that abundance is an inner vibration. They do not seek love, because they understand that love is not attracted, it is being. Upon understanding this, the individual begins to walk in silence. They observe, feel, and create deliberately. Their words become rare, but each one carries the weight of awakened consciousness. In this phase, the world loses its power to intimidate. Crises, offenses, losses Everything transforms into symbols of an internal process. The awakened individual understands that the universe is pedagogical, not punitive. Every challenge is a mirror revealing a belief that needs to be transcended. They stop asking for problems to disappear and begin to ask, "What is this situation showing me about myself?" Pain ceases to be a punishment and becomes a silent teacher, and then a serenity is born that nothing can shake. Even in the face of apparent disorder, the individual remains at peace, because now they know that the scenery is merely the surface of something deeper. They realize that they can shape their reality not through effort, but through permanence in a state of being. The world begins to respond with obedience and precision, like a crystal-clear reflection. The separation between the visible and the invisible begins to dissolve, and the individual understands that time is merely a mirror of their own inner rhythm. Here they are no longer a student of the law. They are the law itself in expression. They live with the tranquil certainty that the invisible is the real substance, and that the visible is merely the shadow that follows it. Fear dies, doubt silences, and the individual finally understands. Everything they see out there is themselves at different levels of consciousness. Creation is not happening. It has already happened. What they call the future is merely the present that has not yet been perceived. In the fifth and final phase, the individual awakens completely to unity. They recognize not as a concept, but as a living experience, that all that exists is the I am itself manifested in infinite forms. There is no longer a difference between creator and creation, between thought and thing, between inside and outside. They become the one who lives in perfect harmony with the law because they no longer try to use it. They are the law itself in action. Nothing is lacking for them because they understand that everything already is. Nothing threatens them because they realize that nothing exists outside their consciousness. In this state, the individual abandons effort and seeking. They do not ask, do not implore, do not doubt. They simply know. This phase is the return to the origin, to the point from which everything always departed, the inner silence where the I am reigns absolute. Here the individual no longer identifies with the character, with the name or with the story they live. They observe life unfolding as an ordered dance, knowing that every movement is perfect because it springs from the singular consciousness. They live in the world, but the world no longer lives in them. They are no longer affected by appearances because they recognize in them only the reflection of an indivisible unity. Everything that happens, happens in them and through them. When the individual reaches this point, they understand the true meaning of the word faith, the complete absence of resistance. They no longer need to believe in something, for they already inhabit certainty. They do not need to see to trust, for they already understand that seeing is merely the result of having assumed the state. Time ceases to be an obstacle, and waiting becomes irrelevant, because they feel with every breath that everything is already consummated. They speak little, and when they speak, their words are decrees. They act little, but every gesture is full of power. Their presence, even in silence, transforms environments because it carries the vibration of that which is one with the source. The awakened individual in this phase does not seek to change the world. They contemplate it as an expression of divine love in motion. They know that every shadow exists only to reveal the light. They understand that duality is an illusion, and that every opposite reconciles in the I am. They look at good and evil, at gain and loss, and see only different aspects of the same whole. They live in profound gratitude, because they recognize that every moment is an opportunity to express being. And so, the individual concludes the cycle of awakening. They have returned to the Father's house, not as a servant, but as a conscious heir. Now they create in silence, live in peace, and manifest with naturalness. Because what they once sought outside, power, love, abundance, the answer, they discovered within. And upon discovering it, they understood that there was never distance, never waiting, never absence. Everything always was them, always was in them, and always will be. Now that you understand the 5 phases of awakening, also understand that nothing you see is random. Everything that surrounds you is an accurate portrait of the state you currently inhabit, The world is the mirror of your consciousness, and it changes when you change. Therefore, no longer seek to fix the reflection. Turn towards the light that projects it. As long as one believes that the cause is external, they will live trapped in the cycle of hope and fear. But the one who assumes the cause within themselves becomes the master of their destiny, for they know that the universe silently obeys their inner vibration. Stop, then, begging for signs, for luck, or for favorable circumstances. There is no external force capable of contradicting a state assumed with conviction. What you accept as true within you, sooner or later, the world will confirm before your eyes. The invisible does not fail. Imagination, when sustained in faith and feeling, is the substance of reality. The awakened individual does not ask, they declare. They do not doubt, they know. They do not wait, they assume. And it is this inner steadfastness that moves mountains, alters destinies, and transforms the impossible into the inevitable. True prayer is not a request, it is a recognition. When you say, "I am," you are invoking the creative power of the universe. Everything you place after those words is an order to the invisible, and the invisible always obeys. If you say, "I am weak," life will confirm your weakness. If you say, "I am abundant," it will bow to your wealth. If you say, "I am love," the entire world will become a mirror of that love. Therefore, speak with wisdom, think with reverence, feel with purpose. You are the creative center of everything you experience. Life does not happen to you, it obeys you. So rise not as a beggar who pleads for a miracle, but as the creator who awakens and commands. In silence, assume the desired state. Live as if it were already real. Act with the serenity of one who knows that the invisible is already in motion. And when the world finally reflects your new state, you will understand the secret few dare to live. Everything you sought out there was always within you, merely awaiting your recognition. Awakening is not a destination, it is a remembrance. You are not moving towards the light, you are the light itself shining anew.